participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. When speaking, be sure to speak directly into a microphone so that all comments are heard and the record of the meeting is accurate. This is critical given the number of remote participants and current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting the clerk's office by 5 p.m. the Thursday before the meeting. The public also will have an opportunity to provide brief comments either by phone or via Zoom from the 5th floor conference room of the municipal office building. Public comment will be allowed during each agenda item. Comments should be limited to the item at hand and per the commission rules of procedure. Should not include any rude or derogatory remarks, reflection as to integrity, abusive comments, and statements as to the motives and personalities. I will now call the meeting of the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee for Monday, August 26, 2024 to order, and I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Roll call. Henry. Lopez.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
Stites.
Here.
Kane. Burrows.
Here. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll ask the clerk if there are any revisions for tonight's meeting.
There were no revisions to.
Thank you. Committee, we have no minutes for approval, so we'll move directly into our committee agenda. We have 3 items on the agenda this evening. They all deal with grants for our law enforcement community. And so the first item up is a resolution dealing with the fiscal year 2025 Victims of Crime Act. It's in reference to $388,614 grant for Victim Services Unit, and I'll recognize our police department to make the presentation.
Good evening. My name is Laura Cromwell. I'm the fiscal manager for the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. The PD is requesting approval to apply for funding under the Victims of Crime Act, or VOCA, grant program for fiscal year 2025 to support our Victim Services Unit. Wendy Medina, our Victim Services Program Supervisor, was unable to be here tonight, so I'm presenting on her behalf. VOCA, which is an annual grant program, has funded the Victim Services Unit, or VSU, at the police department since its inception in 1999. 3 full-time VSU personnel are currently funded by our fiscal year 24 VOCA grant at 75%, and 2 full-time positions at the Order of Protection Office are funded at 100%. Last year, we were able to provide 7,535 services to 1,775 victims. For the fiscal year 25 VOCA grant program, the proposed budget does include $388,614 in federal VOCA funds. As has been the case in previous fiscal years, this year's grant program does require a 20% match from the UG. That amount equals $97,154. This required match will be fulfilled by a combination of both UG cash match and in-kind contributions. For the UG cash match portion, which totals $70,230, we will utilize 100% of the salary of an existing program aide and 25% of the 2 existing advocate salaries. To satisfy the balance of our match requirement, which equals $26,924, we will include the in-kind contribution of dedicated hours by interns and volunteers. The cash match funds already exist in our general fund budget, and no additional funds are being requested to meet the match requirement. Federal funds through VOCA The VOCA grant program will allow for continued direct services to victims, such as emergency shelter, emergency transportation, and crisis intervention supplies, including meals, clothing, replacement cell phones, broken door and window repair, crime scene cleanup, and lock replacement. Funds will also be used for office supplies and training and travel for staff and case management software. If the VSU was not able to receive VOCA funding, it would be reduced to one advocate, significantly limiting the services available to victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, and survivors of homicide. In summary, our fiscal year 25 VOCA application will include the same level of federal dollars requested in previous years, adding no new programs or positions, and will utilize existing budget within our general fund to meet the match requirement.
Thank you, Ms. Cromwell. Does any member of the committee have any questions? Commissioner Lopez?
I just have a quick question. Hey, so on here you have 388. 388, 613.99. And with the 20% match would make it 77,722. But down here you have the 70,230 plus the 26 and then equal to 485. Where does that come into play with the 388?
I was going to say that this is Sherry Courtney with the legal department. We were going to submit a corrected resolution with the value of the grant request being $388,614, because it's my understanding that they always do work with full dollar amounts with these grants. But I'm not sure, what was the remainder of your question?
Well, I mean, it was just kind of confusing with the 70,230 and the 26,924. And
So
then,
that makes up the match total, which is 20% of the entire grant project. And I just broke it down by the two amounts that will be made up by in-kind contributions and the cash match. So our required match is the $97,154. But they thought it might be a good idea to explain how that was comprised.
right, I understand
Okay.
that part.
Okay.
But the 388, 613 with a 20% match.
And so that's the total project amount, which is also in there.
I believe what Commissioner Lopez is getting to is that the 20% of 388 is not $97,000. And in the comment that you made and in the record here says the value of the grant is 388,613 with 20% funds. So amounting to 70,000, and then it's the 26,924. Now, if the 26,924 is included in the 70,000, it's still not a 20% match. So I think that's some of the,
Okay,
the whole total is 485,768.
yes,
That's what wasn't discussed. The 485,
yes.
when you add the 97 to the 388, that's when you should get your 485.
Yes, so the entire project is 485,000 and we are requesting federal funds equal to 388,614. Yes. So it was the 20% of the entire project amount. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I think that was a little bit of confusion. It was not spelled out clearly in the document. So thank you. Any other questions, committee? Bill, you have a question? Okay. Does any member of the public have any comments, any received from the public? Clerk,
No comments were received.
anybody online care to speak to this?
No hands are raised.
Anybody in attendance care to speak to this item? Let the record show nobody stepped forward. I would now. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Bynum. I'm sorry, Stites,
Aye.
Kane, Burrows.
Aye. Thank you, committee. And Laura, I assume you will be making the presentation on the next item. Please, this next item is a resolution, Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Grant. Do you want to do both of these at the same time? And then we'll do a separate vote on both of them. Do you want to give an overview to both?
Yeah, so I can do an overview to both. The sheriff's office is here to present what they will be requesting funds
All right,
for.
great. I'll just wait for the sheriff's department then. Thank you. Please go right ahead.
I apologize. I just wanted to clarify on that last motion that it was for the corrected amount of $388,614 rather than the $388,613.99. Thank you. Sorry.
What, I'm sorry, what was the total again?
The resolution that was presented in your packet says 388,613.99. It should be 388,614.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that. Madam Clerk, you've got that new number, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 2, Ms. McConnell, please.
Okay, so this is a second grant that the police department is requesting approval to apply for. It is the fiscal year 2025 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant. This is a competitive grant program overseen by the Kansas Governor's Grants Program and the Kansas Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. Funds under this grant program will be provided to partners and participants of the criminal justice system to address crime and improve public safety. This year's primary focus for law enforcement partners is drug enforcement. So the police department will be requesting funding to support fentanyl education programs and fentanyl enforcement efforts. Budget items included educational pamphlets, surveillance equipment and cameras, and officer safety equipment. The total request for our project will be $160,722. That's actually $5 more than what was submitted originally as well, due to rounding. Again, it's the whole dollar requests that need to be submitted. So when the original budget was put together, partial dollar amounts were in there. But when you move to full dollars, we were up to $160,722. The project period for this award will extend from October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2025. If awarded, our project would be funded at 100% as there's no match requirement for the UG as part of this grant program.
Committee, any questions? Any comments? Commissioner Burns?
Yes, Laura, did you prepare this proposal, this grant?
In conjunction with Major Richard Harris, who oversees our Special Investigations Division.
Years ago, I was appointed by the Supreme Court to sit on the Byrne Grant Committee, and we had hundreds of submissions. And it was very thorough. And if you didn't really hit every point that they thought was necessary, they always had the thing, is it a need or a want? And that's how, usually on the bottom line, how we distinguish who should be funded or not. So keeping that in mind in the future, that's exactly what they prefer when they go through these grants. And I know there's a lot of them that submit these grants. So I want to commend the police department and sheriff's department, whoever, that whatever you did, you must have did a good job to get both of these grants.
Well, so we're just applying. We were awarded last year. And so, but it is very competitive and they
Yes.
do look for any reason to deny applications. So,
I'm fully aware of that.
yeah, yeah.
These are the types of monies we like to see come forward for our departments, and congratulations on the award of all these grants. I'll ask the clerk if there are any other comments received from the public.
No comments were received.
I'll now ask the clerk, anyone online wishes to make a comment?
No hands are raised.
I will ask if anyone present would care to speak to these comments for this grant. Let the record show no one stepped forward. Okay, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Stites,
Aye.
Kane, Burrows,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you, committee. This is the last action item we have this evening. It's a resolution, another Byrne Memorial Justice Grant for the Sheriff's Department. I will recognize our representative from the Sheriff's Department to make a presentation. Please and welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Angelina Maxville. I'm the Administrative Manager at the Sheriff's Office. I'm along with the Police Department applying for the fiscal year 25 JAG grant. And the sheriff's office will be requesting funding to purchase new body worn cameras and docking stations. This equipment will be for the courthouse security officers and the judicial services deputies. The funds will allow us to replace old, outdated, inefficient body worn cameras, which is necessary to ensure the safety and security of the employees, public, and detainees who are transferred throughout the Wyandotte County Courthouse Complex and other jurisdictions. The total cost the sheriff's office will be requesting is $142,000.
Any questions, comments, committee? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk if there anybody online would care to comment.
There are no hands raised.
Is any messages received from the public?
No comments were received.
Anybody here present would care to speak to this item? Let the record show no one stepped forward. Okay, I would now entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Stites,
Aye.
Kane, Burrows,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you, committee. That takes us to the end of our meeting this evening. I just want to say congratulations to our law enforcement community and really do respect and appreciate the additional dollars you bring to our community for public safety through your grant proposals. Very much appreciated. Thank you. I'd entertain a motion for adjournment. We have a motion and a second for adjournment. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Stites,
Aye.
Kane, Burrows,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you, committee.
Good evening. We are fully transitioned, and we'll move to our Administration and Human Services Standing Committee for August 26, 2024. And before I call our meeting to order, I do want to announce that some committee members, staff, and the public are attending remotely by Zoom, and some are on site. All participants joining by phone should mute phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, we want to make sure you announce yourself by name and title when you speak, so that not only the public observing knows who you are, but that we have that correct for the record. And be sure and speak into the microphone so that the comments are heard and can be properly recorded. This is critical given our number of remote participants, and it's also current guidance from our Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those are included in the record of the meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting our clerk's office by 5 p.m. the Thursday prior to our meeting, and also has an opportunity to provide brief comments by phone or Zoom tonight. Also, public comment is allowed during each agenda item and should be limited to the item at hand, and per the commission rules of procedure, should not include any rude or derogatory remarks, reflections as to integrity, abusive comments, or statements as to motives and personalities. And with all that being said, I will now call our meeting of Administration and Human Services Standing Committee for Monday, August 26, 2024 to order, and ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Roll call. Hill. Here. Davis.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Kane. Bynum.
Here. And I believe, clerk, we have no minutes for approval tonight. Is that correct?
That is correct. There are no minutes.
And we will move directly to our one committee agenda item, and that is a presentation tonight, no voting, just hearing information. And that is regarding childcare accessibility in Wyandotte County. We will hear from Raising Wyco, a coalition, as well as our health department. Before we turn that over to you all, I'm going to actually turn this to Commissioner Davis. He's been working with this coalition for quite some time now, and let you make some opening comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that is, all right. It's got some bite to it. Thank you, Commissioner Bynum. Good evening, everyone, and thank you all so much. I know we have a lot of other things going on, and it's very, very hot outside. So I hope we have a very effective conversation, but we would not be here all night. Raising Wyco will have their presentation, so I won't necessarily want to steal their thunder. What I will say is, committee, the hope is that we will continue this conversation about childcare accessibility within this arena, particularly for the main reason is for the community benefit ordinance. If you all recall in that language, there is a eligible expense called childcare programs and/or initiatives. And so we want to begin that conversation, and we have a lot of smart people, much smarter than me at the table, to really think through what that looks like. The other big issue is we've not had, at least since I've been elected, an in-depth conversation on childcare access in Wyandotte County, how it impacts our economy, how it impacts our communities, and what opportunities there are to improve. And so this will be one of many conversations that eventually will lead to a vote. But for today, it'll just be introductory. And so with that, Chairwoman, I throw it back to you.
Thank you very much. And we want to first welcome Raising Wyco. And Jennifer Traffis, I believe you're the spokesman for the coalition tonight. So we'll start off with you and let you give us your presentation. Thank you very much for all of you being here.
Thank you for having me. That is very loud. I'm Jennifer Traffis. I'm the director of Start Young at the Family Conservancy, and I am the lead staff member for Raising Wyco, which is a community collaborative. Go to the next slide. So childcare is the foundation of our community. And sometimes we think of childcare as a family issue, but childcare is really a community issue. Childcare as I said, is the foundation, and Raising Hawaii Co. was created to address childcare access in Wyandotte County. Our vision is that all families have affordable and accessible quality childcare options, because we know in order for families to work and for us to have a thriving workforce and a thriving community, families need access to childcare. And currently, not all of our families do have access to quality and affordable childcare. So who are Raising Hawaii Co? We are a group of committed early education, community, and business leaders. Some of the steering committee members are made up of local leading agencies in Wyandotte County. We have childcare licensing as a partner, the Family Conservancy, El Centro, Wyandotte County Economic Development Council, as well as additional local and state leaders are a part of our steering committee. We have additionally 3 work groups that are comprised of additional community members, including childcare providers. Raising Hawaii Co has been working those work groups on increasing childcare community awareness, advocacy efforts to work towards solving a community issue that impacts many of our citizens. So why is this important? We know that in Wyandotte County, about 62% of our children ages 0 to 5 are in households with both working parents. And there's only 1 slot for every 20 infants or toddlers in Wyandotte County. So the available quality childcare available to them. So there's only 1 for every 20 infants or toddlers. And there's a huge economic impact for our community for these. Wow. Why am I having such a hard time? I know most of you in this room. There's a huge economic impact of when there's a childcare gap. So for our community, we are losing $151 to $232 million in revenue due to the lack of these childcare slots in Wyandotte County. Part of the issue is that Wyandotte County families may spend up to 25% of their income on childcare, which can be cost more than their housing.
Jennifer, do you mind if I ask you a question right now?
Go ahead.
Just going back to your point of the economic impact of losing this level of revenue.
Yeah.
So tell us why. Is it because you have an example where someone doesn't have access and so therefore they can't work?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are income losses for parents, and then business impacts. So a business may not be able to do their level of business without the employees.
Thank you.
Yes. And that information is cited at the end of this presentation, so you have access to that report. So we know if 62% of children 0 to 5 have both parents working in the workforce, then a significant number of our families need childcare. And at this point, they're just not finding it. That lack of childcare can cause them to be late to work and not be productive if they are needing to find a different type of care for their child. All right, so in Wyandotte County, currently we have about 15,000 children under the age of 5, and there are about 3,000 childcare slots that are licensed in licensed childcare. My colleagues from the health department will share with you the importance of licensed or regulated versus unregulated care. And our goal is for children to be in licensed care because we know that that is the safest place for them to be. And preferably not just licensed, but quality care that is affordable for our families. And I apologize. There we go. We do know that there are 3,000 or more licensed childcare slots, and some of our providers still do also have openings. And that's due to another shortage, which is our workforce or the ability for families to pay. So in Wyandotte County, the main issues that we're talking about for childcare access around the affordability of care, workforce shortage due to low pay for childcare, and that their budgets, our childcare budgets, are created based on revenue. So, and revenue for childcare is based on what families pay for their fees. So our providers can't charge more because families cannot pay more. Therefore, providers are unable to pay their staff in equitable amounts. We know that the current investments happening in Wyandotte County are significant, but they're currently still not sufficient. So Raising Wyco is working to address these gaps by these 5 items. We're prioritizing childcare access issues in community decision-making. That's partly why we're here today, bringing this to your attention. It's probably not something that you haven't heard of. It's probably not actually new information. It's been on the news for last few years, just that childcare is in a crisis. But maybe this is the first time you're hearing about it, that is a crisis here in our community. Second, we're elevating the experience of families and childcare providers in the community. We often hear stories of families not utilizing childcare assistance, but that's not the full story. So we want to make sure and raise the voices of our families and their difficulty accessing childcare in our community. Additionally, we're working towards reducing existing barriers for childcare providers to expand or create childcare slots. Through Raising Wyco and Start Young, we work closely with providers, and we've learned that it's very difficult to expand their business. If they're unable to expand their business, then they can't increase slots. Right now, we're working with them to identify what those barriers are so that we can work together to provide some solutions. Raising Wyco has a workforce work group who's actively exploring community level strategies to improve childcare workforce recruitment, retention, and compensation. We're currently working with the Kansas City, Kansas Community College and local school districts to engage high school students to consider and engage in becoming early childhood education professionals. And then Raising Wyco is continually advocating for additional strategies at all levels, both community, state, and federal. Most importantly, I will say that Raising Wyco is also aligned with the Community Health Improvement Plan. We worked closely with the full committee to develop these goals, the goal around childcare access, which is to increase access to quality, affordable childcare by focusing on the recruitment and retention of providers. We'd like to retain all the childcare slots among both in-home providers and centers. And that's a committee that is working on that. It's not just Raising Wyco, but I did want to just point out that we are aligned with that. So you'll see that several of the strategies of the CHIP goal also are similar to the Raising Wyco strategies. Discussed each of those, so I don't need to read them again unless you'd like me to.
Just talk briefly about the child care tax credits.
You bet. So one of the things that Raising Wyco has been working on is raising the awareness of the employer childcare tax credit. There is both a Kansas employer tax credit as well as a federal tax credit that is in Kansas underutilized and potentially not utilized at all. And this is where an employer can invest a certain amount of funds to assist their staff in attaining childcare. There's a handful of different ways. I don't have that specifically with me, but on the Raising Wyco website, we have all the information about it if you know of any businesses that might be interested.
And is that something that
our Unified Government Strategic Communications Department could be helpful with in educating the public about the availability of these credits?
I would think so, yes. I think the UG works closely with the businesses here in Kansas City and Wyandotte County. And so, yes, we would love any support that you could give.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions about any of these strategies or anything so far? I think I'm pretty. One of the things that I would like to do is just to invite any of you who might be interested in learning either more about childcare access or participating in Raising WICO. You can scan the QR code there, or I'm passing a business card that you're more than welcome to take. We have 3 work groups that are available to join our work. Or you can just go to our website and learn more about childcare access. We have a community dashboard that has additional data about childcare access in Wyandotte County and how Wyandotte County is identified as the childcare desert. And then thank you all for allowing me to be here. I would also just like to say I am, as I stated, my job is Director of Start Young at the Family Conservancy. And we were awarded an ARPA grant. And I just want to say thank you. It has made a huge difference with our childcare providers and with families. We've been able to allocate some of those funds directly to families to access childcare. And additionally, we've been able to make grants to childcare providers to help stabilize their businesses so that they can continue to operate. And I just, again, want to take the opportunity to thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you very much. Yes, the ARPA funding was critical at sort of helping keep the economy moving at that very desperate time.
It really has.
Davis.
Thank you, Jennifer. It was a great presentation. I think within that presentation, what Jennifer has kind of glossed over is this has been 2 years plus of work, if I'm not mistaken, that myself, I see Irene back there, JD Rios, I hope he's doing better, but there's a lot of people, state reps, I see Greg Kendall. I mean, there's a lot of people, Ms. Jarrett, that have been involved and have kind of touched this effort. With that, I do not want, especially the public, to think that this is finished work, that what they're looking at is kind of, well, all these people kind of got in a room and just kind of tell us what it's going to be. I really, really hope we start to see more people, especially parents, guardians of kids that are of childcare age, to get involved, because we need to hear from as many people as possible to see what we can do. Obviously, under kind of the revenue neutral budget and everything else, we want to be very aware of that. But there are even some policy considerations that are starting to come up that I would hope this particular committee could look at so that we can make childcare more accessible in Wyandotte County. We absolutely need state and federal partners. We cannot do this on our own. And so I hope everybody's able to get in on the fight. But thank you. That was a great presentation.
Thank you very much. I want to.
Chairman, we do have Commissioner Ramirez with his hand raised.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go to Commissioner Ramirez, but I want to be mindful. I believe our health department has some presentation materials to share. And I also would like to ask Greg Kendall, if you would not mind with Wyandotte EDC to please come forward to at least the second table, because I would actually like to have you make a few remarks, not the podium, come to the table. And after the health department, I would really like to just hear a few brief remarks from you. But before we turn it to health, we have Commissioner Ramirez. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank for the first presentation that we had tonight. Everyone knows now my realm of work is education, but before that it was childcare, but in a different part of the child's life that was OST, out of school time. And so I understand the importance of not only early education, but also after school education or after school care. As it was mentioned, a lot of majority of our parents are both working. And so it's important to have those after school care services as well, along on top of those early education services. And so I'm very happy that this conversation is continuing, and I know this conversation will continue. And I would love to help in any way that I can. Education, childcare, and Parks and Rec, those are the three top things in my heart that I always advocate for. So just thank everyone for the hard work that they do.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I want to turn it over to our Health Department representatives, and please introduce yourselves. And when you're speaking, give us your name and title as well for the record. Thank you very much.
She's pulling up our slides. Thank you. So on behalf of the Wyandotte County Health Department, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Lori Lanter, and I am a program coordinator for the Wyandotte County Child Care Licensing Program. We're also joined tonight by our program supervisor, Aaliyah Jarrett, who's been with the health department for 18 years, and Erin Gaster, our environmental health specialist, who's been with us for 2 years. So introducing you to our team, we have a lot of different experience and wide backgrounds when it comes to this realm. We have medical assistants, elementary education, paraprofessional, coaching, civil rights advocation, CASA, just you can see on and on, just bringing lots of different angles to the table. We're also supported tonight and in our work by Jennifer Stewart, the Environmental Health Division Manager. So just all right, so as an introduction to our program as a whole, KDHE issues licenses based on on-site verification of compliance based on the work that we do. We've worked hard under Aaliyah's leadership to change the persona of the childcare licensing from someone or a program that's punitive and coming out to get you to a more educational aspect, trying to strengthen relationships with our providers and really assume that they're in compliance unless there's something that shows that they're not. Regulations recognize the importance of children being cared for outside of their own home, and they've been in place for over 105 years now. They're originally instituted to protect the health, safety, and well-being of children in care. And although there have been many updates and revisions throughout the years, including most recently, August 2nd of this year, we're still protecting the health, safety, and welfare of children. There are 3 general areas that our program focuses on. That would be the inspections, consultations, and education. So for inspections, we go into these facilities, we observe, and we point out anything that needs to be corrected. For consultations, that's information given to providers, parents, and even the public. Anybody that needs to have a little more information on regulations or things of that nature. And then the educational aspect. We offer professional development. We either coordinate it, offer it, host it, all of those different sides, with 3 coming up in the next 2 months, partnering with K-State Research and Extension, the kindergarten transition team, and also Kansas Infant Toddler Specialists through KCCTO. So here's our little desert. I know it looks, as Jennifer said, like there's a lot of X's there, but unfortunately, you also see a lot of areas that there just simply isn't. enough care. So these numbers are or were current as of August 14th. So that was a snapshot in the day of that August 14th. So the numbers have been holding steady through the last year, but with a large decline from our 2018 numbers, where we had 175 facilities as opposed to the current 143. And we had the biggest loss in homes, going from 115 in the two homes categories at that time to just 79 in homes at this time. Now, the silver lining in all that is that we have had slight increase in centers and school age programs. And we'll look into each of these different types of facilities coming. So as far as family childcare homes, there's been significant change here with the new regulation. It took the two different types of in-home care and combined them into one category of family childcare home. Occasionally, these family childcare homes may operate in a small commercial site like a strip mall or something like that, but they are still considered in this family childcare home category. Childcare centers. There's really some exciting news as far as our childcare centers in our county. Though we can't name specifics in this presentation, we have opened 5 new and had 1 change of ownership in Wyandotte County in the recent months. And really by changing ownership, those are spaces that we're able to still retain even under a different license. So we count that as a win by not losing them as a facility. So preschools, it shows that we just have 1 in our community. However, this does speak to the need of full-time care in our community. Because the category has such specific parameters with the time that they can be there or the not serving meals and days. We still have a large need for services for the 3 to 4-year-olds. Many of them are in school districts who are offering that age care, but they're not required to be licensed through KDHE.
I'm sorry if you don't mind.
Sure.
This slide is showing us we have 1.
Correct. But please consider that that age group 3 to 4, most of those are being served in childcare centers and school districts offering preschool services.
So this is not school district.
Correct. This is
Oh.
strictly licensed preschool programs. And as you can see, that means that they're not exceeding 3 hours per session, no meal. So with that very strict parameters, it keeps anybody who needs full-time care from being able to utilize a preschool program by definition.
Okay, thanks, that helps.
You're welcome. And for Commissioner Ramirez, here we go, school age programs. They're pretty self-explanatory. However, these regulations are currently under review for updates and changes anticipated for later this fall, where they're going to be changing the name of that program to out of school time. And it will be a little more inclusive for some of those younger age groups than what it currently serves. Drop-in programs, we do not have any of these in our community. I'm not sure as to the reason, but they are less restrictive. And so just as a preference, I'd rather them be in a school age program as opposed to a drop-in anyway. So the final type is daycare referral agency. We are very fortunate to have this agency in our community. The Family Conservancy does so many great things for children and families in Wyandotte County, as well as child care providers. So a little shout out to our relationship with them. Which brings us to the unlicensed type. It's not, it's unregulated care. Not all unregulated care is illegal. As you'll hear from, or as you already heard from the Raising Wyco presentation, there's only one infant toddler slot for every 20 children in that age group in our community. However, when we go out to our facilities aren't full. And so if we have more kids than we have slots for, and we have vacancies in our childcare facilities, then that means those children are somewhere. And so that means they're in unregulated care somewhere, whether it be legal or illegal care. So. The childcare licensing team goes on site to these licensed facilities. And as we go into these facilities, we assume that they're in compliance unless we see they're not through observation and documentation that we review. KDHE authorizes us to go on site to facility premises for one of 5 reasons. So those survey types are the 5 reasons that would we go. The initial and amendment surveys are the only visits that are scheduled, and all other visits to facilities are unannounced. So when we look at the survey types broken down by the visits that we actually made in the fiscal year 2023, you'll see that predominantly we're doing annual surveys, followed by compliance, complaint initials. And strangely, we didn't have any amendment surveys in the 2023 fiscal year. However, there will be an uptick of amended surveys to be expected based on the regulation changes that came August 2nd. As a matter of fact, I already have one next week. So for complaints are the part of our job where we really get the most questions. I think it's public, like, what are the complaints? What are that, So we wanted to include that in your information tonight. When there's an official concern related to one or more regulatory issues, we investigate the complaint allegations. We gather evidence and if the evidence substantiates or unsubstantiates the allegation, and then we submit that back to KDHE. KDHE is the final say to facilities on the findings and any kind of enforcement needed due to substantiated complaints. So just because if we substantiated, that's obviously there was enough evidence to show that there was something within the specific allegations brought up that were non-compliant. But that doesn't mean unsubstantiated means that there were no issues. So unsubstantiated is going to mean either there wasn't enough evidence or that it didn't happen. And we don't make that designation. That just comes from the evidence that we present. So we did break it down into that 2023 fiscal year as far as our complaint findings as 12 unsubstantiated and 13 substantiated. And I will say that if you're looking at the numbers adding up exactly, please keep in mind that there's different timelines for things. So something that may have come in wouldn't have necessarily be counted until it's turned in. So please don't double check my math. So once again, thank you for your time. We appreciate your recognition that the investment at an early age does reduce the need for interventions on our community at an older age. And we would have been excited, but and now I'd just like to open it up for questions that Aaliyah Jarrett and Aaron Gaster will field.
Okay, and I was just going to say, if your colleagues have any comments you'd like to bring to us now, I think we might have some comments and questions that, you know, you're probably going to maybe want to respond to, but if you have something now, we'd love to hear it.
That was killing me saying your second part. I'm like, oh my God, the part.
Well, you did a great job.
You did wonderful. Lori and Aaron, like she mentioned, we are always a team, and so that's why any of us can lead that information. We do thank you for having us here, because this is what support looks like. And our children in Wyandotte County deserve this kind of support.
Is your microphone on?
Your mic.
By chance?
Got a big voice, so I gotta push the button.
Yeah, just.
And then your
One of the things in
name.
Wyandotte County, it is, we have the best providers. We're creating learning, environments that are crucial to taking care of children. And this is what support looks like. So when you go to vote, it's about the funds that come in it, but it's also the care that we're giving out. And we put our providers up against anybody because they care about kids, but we need money and we need things and we need support. So we're glad for the information. We're glad for the opportunity. There's nowhere to put a daycare in Wyandotte. We got to work with that. We got to find places for the kids to go that they're safe, where they have outdoor play environments, where the people that are doing the work feel the support. Providers have to feel their support. And so letting us talk about our 18 years, I'm like, I'm gonna talk because I won't be here 18 more years. We need this support, and we need the health department is a good place to work. It's a good place to interact with the public. It's a good place to show the boundaries for kids. But we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do in this county. So, Ms. Aaron, if you'd like to say anything, I could talk forever, but thank you for the
No,
opportunity.
thank you very much. And I was gonna say thank you to all of you for the time, but also you specifically for the 18 years, because that's a
That's
a long
good.
time.
We have good providers. I think they're very passionate about what they do. That make the job worthwhile. We have a good team. We have a new leader. We're trying to be a team at the health department, but we have to put our kids first.
I think the other thing for us to remember is we are the Board of Health. And it's important for us to understand all of the things that means. So Erin, please, if you have comments.
Hi, Erin Gaster with Child Care Licensing. And I just want to say thank you again for letting us come here and share with you what we do. So it brings a better understanding to our community and our teams that we work with and how we collaborate in the community, just to kind of show that off. I think is pretty neat. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Greg Kendall, I apologize for the last minute request, but you know, I think you bring an interesting perspective to this dynamic. And I know that you don't need advance notice to have remarks ready to share with us about how your world intersects with this world. So if you don't mind, a few comments from you. Oh, that's right.
I'm a little older, a little slower.
Okay, got it. Thanks for being here.
Wiser, seasoned. Well, thank you, commissioners, Commissioner Bynum, and all of you, because we have been involved in this discussion for some time. We are an unlikely partner in childcare. We get reminded of that when we travel, frankly, across the country, talking about why are we involved in childcare and what are we doing in Wyandotte County. But I should preface it by saying there's really 4 people and institutions that are to blame for that. One, former Commissioner McKiernan, he one day approached us and said, you know, our county health rankings are very low. And as we delved into them, I was like, poor folks that have to be involved with those county health rankings. And then he said, well, you know, if you drill down into the data, you'll find out that those socioeconomic factors are affecting our county health rankings. And so you ought to be more involved in this. And I said, okay, well, if you'll help me, we'll get into that. And so maybe 9 years ago now, we started looking at what are the barriers to employment. And childcare became one of those 5 that we've been focused on ever since then. It started off as just a part of our Workforce Solutions Committee. Now it's fully under Raising WICO. And I tell people all the time, I don't do anything unless Paula Neff tells me that she has approved it when it comes to childcare. That is largely true. But I also have to blame Kathy Harding. She was one of the first folks who helped fund the program, as well as Paula Neff, and then your county health department. So when ARPA funds came out, when we were starting to look at the CHIP, all of that rolled up into workforce solutions in these 5 areas that we're focused on. The most expensive of the 5 areas that are barriers to employment is childcare. It's the most difficult, really, of all of those areas. We have language barriers, we have transit issues, we have educational barriers, but the most expensive one of all of those is childcare. And the number that we always kind of come back to is that 26%. 26% is the availability of spots that we're meeting the need today, right? And before the pandemic, we were at 34%, which was terrible. And today we're at 26%. And so even as we create new slots and as we work with childcare advocates and we work with the childcare business sector, it's incredibly difficult to figure out how we piece all these dollars together to create enough childcare locations, quality early childhood education. That's Paul and Eth in me, that quality piece, right? It's not just childcare, it has to be quality. The other piece that we often talk about is that we have the highest wages paid in the state of Kansas in Wyandotte County, but our household income is 61%, 61st in the state, which has come up a long way. But when you only have enough spots to fill 26%, that means that there are an awful lot of folks who are staying at home with their children because they either can't find a slot or they can't afford it. We don't see a lot of childcare providers in Wyandotte County who are for-profit. They're mostly faith-based, nonprofit, or in-home. And the reason a lot of folks end up going in-home is because for one reason or another, they couldn't find a slot of their own. And so they end up taking in another couple of children. They go through the regulatory process, which is not easy to do. And suddenly now they're in business. But that wasn't what they started off doing. They were just solving their own personal need. And as a result, we have over 11,000 jobs available in Wyandotte County today. We were at 6,000 during the peak of the pandemic, and we thought that we were in no man's land, that there was no way to come back from that. And now we're at 11,000 open jobs in Wyandotte County. Part of that problem is that a lot of our workforce is not in the workforce. The other challenge that we have is that twofold. One, those kids, that is our future workforce. And as many of you know, economic development is about workforce today. Location, incentives, if you don't have a workforce, if we can't prove that this county and this community can't find the jobs for those 11,000 openings, they won't come here. That is a stifling to economic development. So we have that piece of it. The other piece of it is that if the kids going into kindergarten aren't ready for kindergarten, that means the educational system has to get them ready. And the data suggests that if they're not ready by the 3rd or 4th grade, they will likely never catch up. So we also know that the data suggests that those kids that are going through early childhood educational programs are better prepared for kindergarten. So if we want to change and get folks out of poverty, it needs to start some point with our future workforce. We've got to get these kids ready for school. And we need to then treat small businesses like childcare as small businesses. And we know that from an economic development perspective, we get what we measure, we get what we incentivize. And so part of what I appreciate your all's conversation is that we need to start thinking about if we want folks out of poverty, if we want more people in the workforce, raising household income, then we have got to figure out in this really odd space how childcare is critical to all of that. Not only as a business, but then what are we doing to streamline that business process? How are we working with the state to do that? How are we making sure that our kids are ready for kindergarten? And then how are we incentivizing those folks, right? So if they're nonprofit and faith-based now, if we want for-profit, that's fine. But if we want to continue to grow our faith and nonprofit and at home, then we're going to have to figure out what does that look like from a property taxation? How does that look from how we charge for regulatory processes? How do we create, at one time we were talking to the commissioner about creating sort of an ambassador, somebody who could take people through that process, because it is not easy. And if you're a good-hearted person and you want to do an in-home childcare facility, God help you, right? Because we've had faith-based who I think start cursing a lot because the regulatory process is hard. They're good people that are going to take care of the kids, but they were not built to go through the regulatory process. And so it's not easy. So we're going to be coming back to you all through the Family Conservancy and this Raising Wyco group to talk about what do we need to do to support this business sector, because it's not just about childcare. This is about the kids who become our future workforce And how do we get people out of poverty? And so the other last thing I'll leave you with is that we have a lot more conversations with our companies about childcare because we're trying to figure out this whole childcare tax credit. It isn't quite right at the state level. The other problem is at the federal level, you can't take any more money per child today than you could, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? It's ridiculous. So there's a federal issue here as well around the value of our children. But the other piece is that this shouldn't be about women, right? So women almost always end up taking care of the children. And so most of our companies are run by men. The HR department may be run by a female, but the companies are largely run by men. And we're trying to say, through your unusual partner, men, you've got to be more engaged in childcare, because the reason why women walk off the plant floor is because somebody's got to go take care of their kids. At 2:30 in the afternoon, if they don't have somebody to take care of their child, then they're leaving that job because that's more important. And who would you want in your workforce than somebody who's going to go take care of their child? What option do you give them? And so sometimes it's not rocket science. Sometimes it's about adjusting shift schedules, but it's also about making sure that we understand how do we accommodate women and families for that matter. And so I'll leave it there. Some of that is quality of life, but some of that is very much a business-oriented component. Thank you.
Well, this is why I asked you to come forward for all of that. And thank you very much for being willing to come forward and give those remarks. And I think we've got some commission discussion, and also want to make sure that anybody here in the audience that wants to speak has that opportunity. Dr. Commissioner Hill, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Bynum, and thank you, team, for sharing with us on this evening. Certainly appreciate the work that you do, very important work. And I am just thrilled to be able to hear about the work that you do. I do have a couple of questions. What do you do when you have one of the providers that is substantiated with the complaint filings? What do you do? How do you handle that?
They were supposed to answer questions.
Okay, we
So-
can answer questions. We get it off, but we got the same answer. So
It's the same, yeah, it's because it's mandated from KDHE. So when we substantiate a finding, all of that goes to KDHE for review. And basically, they go through our evidence and decide on the state level, do we agree with what local says? And so when they do, because we do our job right, then they being the provider now gets a notice of noncompliance from the state. And depending on the level of the severity, the compliance history, because this may be the 6th time they've been cited for the same thing, then KDHE will basically tell them what they have to do to get into compliance. And sometimes that will even be with a civil penalty at extreme situations. And if it's really extreme, then they can even suspend or revoke a license. But all of that does come from the state level and not from us locally.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering, so if they came to the point where their license were taken away, and then there's more kids now that are left without a sitter. So, okay, I just wanted to understand that. And then my other question had to do with the licensing piece. Are you finding more people are wanting to be licensed? Is there a decrease in the enthusiasm to be a licensed provider? Where are we at with that?
I will say with the state, they were doing some wide casting, accelerated type of targeted messaging that wasn't extremely targeted. It was because people were under the assumption with the types of advertisement that was put out that if I become a child care provider, I'm going to be an employee of the state, and it doesn't quite work that way. We have DCF, we have KDHE, and getting them to understand that they would actually be a small business owner and employ themselves was lost in translation a little bit when all of that really heavy marketing was going on. So that we did see a lot of increased interest and higher people coming to our orientations, but with very little follow through when they actually understood what it really was. And I'll point out that her first question was about complaints, like I said.
If I could just add, one of our things that we really work hard in our department to try to do is with that enforcement, because of that complaint process, is education. So we do a lot of trainings that are around maybe some of the violations that we see more often. Our goal is not to always be a regulatory agent, but also tell them why the quality needs to be there and why that needs to happen. And so I think our providers have been receptive. It's how anybody in our county can make a complaint. And so you can get a complaint, does not mean that it's substantiated. It just means that we need to come in and we try to make our providers better. And so I think that's our goal, is that we all can answer questions. We can all empower that provider to do better care. And again, our focus is really on the quality of care to make sure our children are first, that they're being set up for success and that they're able to thrive within the environments that they're creating. So it does take a lot of education, so that enforcement goes with that education component that we'd like to see.
Thank you.
And if I could add something to Aaliyah's statement, is also understand that regulations are just the minimum standard of care. That's just the bare minimum to protect the health, safety, and welfare. By our professional developments and in services, we really want to bring up that quality so that they do understand the why and how to get better results, as opposed to just that minimum that we enforce.
And Jennifer, Travis, did you have a comment on that?
I do, if you don't mind, Commissioner Hill. Start Young is what I do for my, full-time job. And one of the things that we have done for the last 6 years is to support those providers who may be interested in opening a in-home or center program. We recently supported a childcare provider in opening her doors or reopening a childcare center location that was previously closed. And just for your knowledge, it took her 1 year from identifying the building. So I'm not sure how long it took her in identifying the building, but from once she identified the building and made a connection to lease it, it took a full year for her to open her doors. And that is a very difficult place for any individual to be in. This young woman is a mother and was luckily able to make this all happen. But not everybody who starts that process can finish it, because it is lengthy and there's many steps, and most don't have the capital or the ability to open a center. One of the things that licensing commented on is facilities. And in Wyandotte County, there are very few opportunities for facilities for potential childcare. With new regulations that just started August 2nd, I think that's going to be even a little bit more difficult for our programs to open as well. In-home providers have more of an opportunity, and we definitely would like to support more and more providers who are speaking multiple languages in our community.
Thank you. Commissioner Ramirez, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to our health department for the presentation. As I stated before, I've been on that other side of the licensing line. I was the director of an OST program, so I know what it takes and the hard work it does to stay in compliance with all regulations, KDHE and local health department regulations. So I want to thank all of the facilities out there who are doing the hard work and wanting to provide the necessary childcare. And also thank you to our health department employees for ensuring that all our facilities are doing the work and following the law and following the regulations. It's hard. It's hard work, but it's good work. Childcare education is the bedrock of any community. And so I'm, like I mentioned before, I'm very glad that we're having this conversation. Even though this conversation has been going on, now it's time we bring everyone in, and we, as the governing body of this community, and as Commissioner Bynum said, the Board of Health, it's time we as a body take on this role and do what we can to accelerate um, bringing more childcare facilities to Wyandotte County. And I'm willing to help in any way, shape, or form to make that happen. You know, this is something near dear to my heart. So just thank you to everyone who's part of this, all the collaborators, stakeholders, the facility owners. Thank you for all that you do. It makes Wyandotte County better when we all work together.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the presenters and also the commission for your enthusiasm and interest in the topic, because this is critically important. You may or may not remember Jennifer Traffis was there when the ARPA money rolled into town, and we held a community convocation around prioritizing what the community thought we should be spending ARPA money on, and childcare was top 3. It was critically important to those folks who participated in that community-based event to guide our decision-making on ARPA. So here we are, and it's still critically important, but I will never forget how high childcare ranked in that exercise that we did with the community. I know, are there other comments? Any other comments from the committee? I know that it's possible that there are comments from the audience. Is there anyone present here with us tonight that would like to come forward, please, to the podium and make sure the button on the microphone turns green there at the bottom? And then if you would give us your name and city and share with us up to 3 minutes worth of your comments, please. And thank you for taking time to be here.
Good evening. My name is Angela Glass. I am a home family provider. It's me and my husband as a team, and I've been doing it for over 22 years now. In the last few years have been a little challenge for my daycare business as well as others, and some of the for different reasons. And some of the challenges is for providers in Wyandotte County are getting enrollments and, excuse me, being paid on time, parents keeping their jobs, parents renewing on time and paying staff, and just the overall keeping the tuition at an affordable rate so that we don't outprice the community. All while fighting to keep making our own ends meet in our own households, because a lot of our income goes back into the business. And finances have changed since the pandemic, and everything has increased in price. COVID relief came and the state gave us funds to help bridge those gaps, but now that's gone. But since partnering with WICO Start Young program, my business, I'm super excited because it's given us a lot of support and resources that we didn't have before. And our parents can feel comfortable knowing that they have the support that they have available to them as well. Our community relies on quality childcare to support children's early development, allowing parents to work and just keep businesses open. I would like to see WICO continue to support providers and to better serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, your name and city for the record, and you have up to 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Demetria Spencer. I am the director, owner of Delightful Learning Center, and I've been in childcare for 20+ years. We started in home for 6 years, and then we moved to a small church, and we were licensed for only 23, but we quickly needed to expand, and we have been looking for spaces in our county for childcare to expand for so long, and there was nothing available. There was nothing in our price range. So we waited and we saved, we waited and we saved, and then the pandemic came. And we watched other childcare centers close. And so we began to shop again, and we found one actually right down the street from here. We purchased it. Only thing was it was in really bad conditions. And so through the ARPA funds, we were able to receive dollars for stop the roof from leaking, to replace the furnaces, to replace the flooring, just to get the facility in good enough condition for us to have childcare in the center. And so since then, we were able to open the facility this year, but it did take us at least 2 years to get the facility open, because the first year was spent in renovations and the second year was spent jumping through all the hoops. And we spent 6 months waiting for the architect to do the code footprint. And then we spent 3 months waiting for permits to come down from the Unified Government and Codes Enforcement. Then we spent 2 months waiting for the fire marshal. Then we spent another 3 months
Minute remaining.
waiting. Oh, I'm sorry. So yes, it was a lot of work, but we finally did get the center open. And now we're here in 2024. We have a staff load of 15. Our teachers are making close to $15 an hour, and they know they have incentives. If they get enrolled in school, they have the opportunity to receive more money, but we need to keep our tuition rates low for our families. And even though the pandemic dollars have ended, ARPA dollars have ended, we still need the support to create quality spaces for children and families. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you for being here and presenting. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Mindy Rocha, Kansas City, Kansas. I'm a parent, small business owner, and a part of Raising Wyco. I think Mr. Kendall hit it on the head. We see it in construction. We don't have quality workforce, and access to childcare is a huge barrier. We've seen on the Missouri side where with the airport, they tried to put a program in place, and we just can't quite hit the nail on the head yet. So any collaboration we can do to help with getting qualified individuals into the workforce. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I saw your
You
face.
could see my face. Do you have a childcare in your business?
No, I can't afford it.
Oh, okay. I thought you had found a way to combine your business that you own with a care facility. I don't know why I thought that.
No, not yet.
Okay.
I haven't had a lot of individuals come to me with that issue. I know a lot of our families, we are union contractors, so we do have a higher scale, but some of them are individual income families. So
Thanks. And please continue if you weren't done.
no, I think I am now.
And my face interrupted.
No, it is a barrier for the workforce. And as a contractor trying to find qualified workforce, it is a huge barrier for us.
Thank you very much. And Commissioner Kane, did you have a comment?
Well, I have a couple of them.
Good.
Union, you know, I love that stuff. I'm frustrated and I'm pissed because it took a year for her to get all her stuff. Oh boy, I don't want to say something stupid, but I might. That's wrong. Somebody should get kicked in the ass for that move. You know, we ask people to open up a business in Wyandotte County, and it takes forever for someone to go out and inspect this and inspect that. And then for the fire marshal to do this and the fire marshal to do that, whoever was responsible, Rodney, I'm talking to you, my friend. I want to find out who did what, and I want to prevent this from happening again. We run businesses out of town for this exact reason. For some reason, we stumble across the threshold. We've got folks coming in. How are we ever going to get the Chiefs and the Royals if we can't get a daycare opened up? Ma'am, I apologize. somebody needs to find out what happened, why it happened, and how we're gonna fix it. And we need to prevent this from happening again.
Amen to you. Anything else, Commissioner Kane? Okay, all right. Commissioner Hill.
Just agree with Commissioner, and I'd also like to say the other example of the young lady who went through jumping through hoops for a year is just so unfair. So thank you, Commissioner, for pointing that out, and hopefully we can be aggressive in figuring out ways how we are not the barrier.
Right. Okay, Commissioner Davis.
Thank you. I do remember hearing that story. I didn't know who it was, but we had talked pretty extensively about that particular conversation in very, very uh, unfortunate and unnecessary trial. One of the things that Raising Waco has been working on is a roadmap. And in future, conversations, colleagues, if you all would indulge, we can talk about what that roadmap is for providers to open, right? Where you start from inception of, hey, I have an idea, to now, I mean, you go through all of the hoops of finding financing and partners and all the regulatory things, which for many of those regulatory things that are needed, it's really the local government following state statute, right? And so there are so many partners and so many hands involved. And I want to say to the folks that did come and speak, thank you. And please stay engaged with us. I know many of you already are, but we need your stories. We need your perspective. We need your energy. We need you because y'all are the ones that do the work. My sister is a child care provider in Chicago, and so this work is very near and dear because I hear the stories and the challenges. And I don't necessarily have kids personally, but I agree with what Mr. Kendall said, and I didn't say it because I knew he was going to say it. It's very important for as men for us to get involved. The majority of the folks that sit on the commission are men, right? That has an impact on the types of conversations that we have and how long we have them, right? And so this conversation is super important. I will push for there to be more of many, and I know many of my colleagues will be very interested in that because this is an issue that impacts everybody. It is not just an issue that impacts women. And so, I'm very grateful for where we are at in this conversation. And I think in future conversations, we can continue to think through not only that horrific situation, but the successes as well, right? Of what worked well for those other providers when they opened and what were the difference. And what are some things we can do from a policy standpoint, from a budgetary standpoint? What are some of the things, even from a relationship standpoint with our state and federal partners? We have a legislative agenda that we adopt every year. In my recollection, I don't think anything childcare related is on there. And so what would it look like for us to be a little bit more aggressive and to say, hey, this issue is impacting us? And so there are a lot of tools that we can pull, even with our limited resources, to better this. But to our health department, thank you, thank you. I want to continue working with you all for the Family Conservancy, right, for Greg Kendall, Wyandotte. I'm very excited for where this conversation can go. And for our community, I hope you all get involved, whether it's with Raising Waco or others, because we need as many people as possible a part of this conversation. Thank you, Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Kane.
If you ever run into a situation like that, you let me know, and I promise you that staff is going to make some adjustments, whether there's replaced. I can't believe it took a year to do that. It should never happen again. You get a hold of me and some heads roll one way or the other to prevent this from happening again. You know, and when my kids were little, childcare was a huge issue for us. And here we are, we got somebody more than willing to do it. And it takes a year, so you're missing a year's worth of income. You're in a tiny place, you want to go to a larger place. You want to do everything you can, and we can't get somebody to go out there? In fact, I want to know who they are. Rodney, I want to find out who, why, and where. And I want an explanation. I want their boss and I want them. I want to meet with them personally to prevent this from happening again.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think that, it's obviously a topic that may be long overdue for us to be sitting here together. So thank you to all of you and to Commissioner Davis for working with the group to bring it to this committee. It can be an emotional issue, but it's also a business issue. And ultimately, it's about taking the best possible care of our children that we can with whatever resources we have, whether that's from the government side to the provider side to the family side. So hopefully we're all trying to move that in the same direction. I want to thank all of you for taking time. Is there anyone else present that wanted to speak that we did not give the opportunity? If not, this is the only item tonight. Is there a second?
Davis second.
Roll call, please.
Roll call. Hill.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Kane. Bynum.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned. Thank you all again.